Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. It's February and love is in the air, especially if you're curling up with a good romance book. We know Jenna Bush Hager sure is. She just announced her February book club pick for Read With Jenna, and it's a magical love story that's perfect for Valentine's Day. The book is One and Only by Maurene Goo, which was just published on February 3rd. It follows Cassia Park, a 40-year-old woman from a family of Korean matchmakers who can see people's fated soulmates. The only problem? Cass's soulmate, Daniel, still hasn't shown up. Tired of waiting, she starts a fling with handsome 28-year-old Elliot, even though she knows he's not her true love. But complications ensue when he introduces her to his boss, Daniel. This is a book about fate versus free will, love and commitment, mother and daughters, said Jenna. It has a great love triangle. It's about writing our own story, Jenna said. The book was chosen for the sprinkle of magic it brings to a month that can be cold and dark. One and Only by Maurene Goo is the perfect book for February, Jenna said. Not only is February the month of love, and this is a romance, but it's also one of the shortest months of the year, and this book flies. You'll open it and you'll read it in one sitting. This is Maurene's debut book for adults after previously writing YA. We love that it combines later-in-life romance, a little magic, and important family themes grounded in Korean culture. All I knew was I really want to write something with romance at its core. I want it to be joyful and fun, Maurene told Today. I was thinking of magic specific to Korean culture, matchmaking. They have all these practices going back generations and generations, she said, which became the inspiration for the story. Whether you'll be celebrating Valentine's Day with a loved one or spending it with a slice of cake and your favorite book, this February read will be perfectly on theme. Grab a copy for yourself to enjoy an easy, breezy, romantic read while we wait for spring to come. Don't forget to join the GH Book Club for more great book recommendations every month. February in the city had a way of softening edges. It could make brick facades look like they'd been dusted with sugar, and it could make the wind feel like a dare designed to test every coat you owned. For Cassia Park, February was a month of contradictions, short and bright and merciless in its own way. It was the month her grandmother had always said the heart's voice became louder. Listen, she would say, tugging at Cassia's sleeve, as if the girl might be able to loosen the sound from the air simply by willing it. Cassia had grown up hearing other people's heartstrings. Not literally, of course. Nobody in the park line hummed like an orchestra. What they had, across generations, was something less showy and more stubborn, a sense tuned to the small, impossible markers that connected people. Her great-grandmother called it seeing the red thread. Her mother called it the family business. Cassia's mother, Mi-ja, ran a modest matchmaking house in the neighborhood, the kind where people came with printed resumes and trembling eyes, where Mi-ja would listen to the rustle of socks and the pause after a sentence and know what to pair with what. Mi-ja had been gentle about teaching Cassia the family art, when Cassia could stay awake long enough to learn. She taught in the kitchen over bowls of rice, while the radio murmured old ballads, and the steam fogged the windows, so the whole world seemed as private as a whispered confession. Cassia learned the rules. Look for the loop at the corner of the eye, the small scar that showed up in the same place on two people's palms, the way certain names fit into silence and some didn't. But what came naturally to Mi-ja and her sister, the knack of connecting people, came to Cassia as something not entirely hers. She could see small things others couldn't, a lightness between two strangers, a seeing in a man's posture that meant longing, the ghost of a touch that would happen later. It was like being given the corner of a map and no key. When Cassia was 20, she tried to let fate arrange her life. She let her mother set up dates, on the third floor of a tea room with paper lanterns, at a friend's wedding where everyone knew someone who was just the right age. Each time she watched how people fit together, or not. She watched friendships conjoin and flake. She watched people fall into grooves that suited them. She wanted to believe the line they taught in class, "We are all sewn together in patterns older than our names," but there was a dull ache at the center of it. She wanted a story that felt like hers. At 40, the ache had not softened, it had sharpened into a patient question. Cassia had learned over the years how to let someone stand in front of her while the thing inside whispered the name of a soulmate, and she would feel the word like a physical thing, light as lace. But it had never told her Daniel. Daniel was a name her grandmother said often as if it belonged to a future, not an instruction, but the vaguest of promises. "Daniel will come," her grandmother had said, the last time Cassia had sat with her hands folded, the same way Cassia folded her hands when she listened for the red thread. Her grandmother died before Daniel showed. The family dealt in rituals, not timelines, and rituals are patient. They will wait across decades if they must. Cassia, who ran a small bookshop down the block, the sort of warm place with a bell that chimed when customers came in, and a cat who had claimed the poetry section as his territory, had built a life on softer certainties. Good tea on rainy days, Sunday calls from her mother, the ritual of sweeping leaves from the stoop in spring. She taught a weekly class on memoir writing and loved seeing how people's stories curved like rivers when given a little bit of space and a listening ear. People loved to tell her about their romances and failed engagements and the books that had held them together. Cassia loved to arrange those narratives into neat little packages, a box of books for someone going through a breakup, a stack of old novels with notes tucked in the pages for a nervous newlywed. In a late January night, when the city felt tired of winter and everyone's hands were stuffed into the same gloves, Cassia told herself something that felt like rebellion. She would write the rest of her own story. It was a small rebellion. She signed up for a pottery class on a whim because Potteries NYC had a nice afternoon slot, and she liked the idea of making something tangible with her hands. She did not think of this as matchmaking. This was not her mother's business. This was not something anyone else would bother with. It was simply a place to get her palms muddy and to hear the quiet that comes from concentrating on the shape of something. She would be 30 minutes late, because of course she would. The bus had been late, and then a neighbor had stopped with an urgent question about where the recycling went, but she would arrive apron in hand to learn how to center clay. The class was full of people who smelled of promises. A woman with pink hair who announced she was an interior designer, a man in a suit who said he was at the wrong place, a young man who kept checking a small phone. Elliot was not one of the obvious characters. He was the quiet one who stood at the back, the kind of attractive someone who could make himself easy to be with simply by being present. He was 28 years old, according to the offhand way he volunteered his age when the teacher asked, and he had hands that were capable and careful with the clay. He wore a sweater the color of caramel and spoke as if he meant what he said. People noticed him in a way that made him seem less like some great event and more like a small, unexpected sunbeam. Cassia's first impression was that Elliot smiled like someone who counted emeralds in his head. He apologized when he bumped her elbow and asked if she wanted to borrow his wheel. He had a laugh that reached his eyes and made them crinkle at the corners. That night he talked about his job, marketing for a tech startup, and how the office had ordered too much takeout. He brought her an extra napkin when a bit of clay threatened to make a mess on her sleeve. He let her try his favorite glaze, which smelled faintly of lime. There was a softness to him that did not demand anything. She did not, at first, think of him as anything more than that, a pleasant thing in the twilight of the week. She was careful. Mi-ja had taught the rules. The Park women were cautious about good counsel. You have to know whether he is stitched to your thread, Mi-ja had told her once, while stirring kimchi into a bowl. Not all bright things are for us.